All right, so you're prepping for an ombudsman interview. That's awesome. It's not your everyday role. So let's dive into what makes it special and how to really stand out in that interview.
It's interesting because the role really focuses on fairness and balance, especially, when you have one side with a lot more power than the other. It's not just conflict resolution in general, it's more about leveling the playing field. Like, think about situations involving public institutions, like
hmm
hospitals, universities, or even government
Oh,
agencies.
yeah, for sure.
That's where an ombudsman would step in.
Exactly. And the role catcher guides we've got here, they really highlight that power imbalance element. And
Yeah.
they've got some great real world examples, which really helps to make it all a bit clearer.
Absolutely. And it's not just about knowing the law. You'll need investigation skills for
Yeah.
sure. But active listening and empathy, those are vital too. Those soft skills are what let you really understand both sides of the story and build trust.
Speaking of understanding, RoleCatcher actually gives some insight into what interviewers want. Did you know that reading comprehension and active listening are two of the top skills they look for?
That makes total sense. An ombudsman has to grasp complex information and really listen to everyone involved. It's about getting to the heart of the issue and figuring out the best way forward.
Okay, enough about the what. Yeah. Let's get into the real meat of this deep dive.
Yeah.
Those interview questions. RoleCatcher has provided a fantastic set of sample questions, and we're going to walk you through them. We'll offer tips on how to approach each one, and we'll even suggest potential follow-up questions they might throw your way. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Hit me with the first one.
All right, here's a classic. Can you tell us about your experience in conflict resolution? Now, this seems pretty straightforward, but what are they really getting at?
It's not just about listing every argument you've ever settled. Remember that power imbalance element we talked about? They're checking if you get the nuances of dealing with situations where one side has more influence.
So if you've handled those kinds of situations, those are the ones to highlight.
Exactly.
The career stage profiles in the RoleCatcher Guide are perfect for this. They've got actual examples of ombudsmen and the situations they've dealt with.
Yeah. Use those profiles to spark ideas and illustrate your own experience. Think of a time you successfully resolved a conflict where there was a clear power imbalance. What were the challenges? What strategies did you use? And what was the outcome? Having a strong story ready will make your answer stand out.
And be prepared for those follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Imagine they ask, what was the most challenging conflict you've mediated and how did you approach it?
That's your time to shine. Pick a situation that really tested your skills, something where you had to think outside the box, maybe even push back against someone with authority.
All right, next question. How do you prioritize and manage your workload? This one feels like a standard interview question, but how can we tailor our answer to the ombudsman role?
The RoleCatcher Guide really paints a picture of the work environment. Fast-paced, emotionally charged, with lots of cases happening at once. They want to know you can handle the pressure and stay organized.
So it's not just about having a to-do list. It's about showing that you can figure out what's urgent, meet deadlines, and stay calm when things get a bit crazy. Maybe mention a specific time management system you use that shows you're proactive.
And imagine they follow up with, you're juggling multiple cases with tight deadlines. How do you make sure each case gets the attention it needs?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You'd really have to show how you can think on your feet, prioritize effectively, and communicate clearly with everyone involved.
It's about showing you can adapt and manage competing priorities.
Okay, question number 3. Can you give an example of a time when you had to make a difficult decision? This one seems pretty broad. How can we make our answer really stand out?
Remember those career stage examples we talked about earlier? Those can be a great starting point. Pick a situation from the profiles that resonates with you and adapt it to your own experience.
That's a great idea. It shows you've done your research and you're thinking critically about how those real-world scenarios apply to you.
And when you're telling your story, focus on what was at stake. What were the potential consequences of your decision? What options did you consider? And why did you choose what you did? The interviewers want to see that you can weigh different factors, make tough calls, and explain your reasoning.
And what if they follow up with, looking back, would you have made the same decision? And what did you learn from that experience?
That's a great follow-up. It shows they want to know how self-aware you are and your ability to learn and grow from your experiences, the good and the bad.
Good point. Okay, moving on to question number 4. How do you stay up to date with current laws and regulations? Now, this one seems very specific to the ombudsman role.
Absolutely. Laws are constantly changing, and a good ombudsman needs to stay on top of those changes to really advocate for their clients. Luckily, the RoleCatcher Guide has some great resources.
Yeah, it mentions conferences, publications, professional associations, Being involved in those shows, you're proactive and committed to constantly learning.
And to really prove your knowledge, talk about a specific law or regulation that's relevant to ombudsman work and how you stay informed about any updates. Maybe there's a recent change that's really significant. That's something you could really dig into.
That's a great way to show your passion and expertise. What if they ask, a new law is passed that really impacts your work? How would you go about understanding and implementing the changes?
That's where you show off your research skills, your ability to understand legal language, and your dedication to staying ahead of the curve. You could mention things like seeking guidance from legal experts, attending training sessions, or working with colleagues.
All right, question number 5. How do you handle confidentiality in your role as an ombudsman? This one feels pretty serious.
It's absolutely crucial. Ombudsmen handle sensitive information, and keeping things confidential is key to building trust with your clients. The RoleCatcher Guide highlights the ethics and the practical steps involved.
So you'll want to talk about things like confidentiality agreements, data protection protocols, secure communication methods. Those are all essential. Maybe even share a story about a time you handled confidential information with extreme care, something that really shows your integrity.
And be ready for this follow-up. A client asks you to disclose confidential information during a dispute. How would you handle that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. You'd have to remind them about confidentiality, explain the potential consequences of breaking that trust, and maybe look for other solutions that don't involve revealing sensitive information.
It's tricky, but you have to uphold those ethical standards.
Okay, on to question number 6. How do you handle difficult or emotional conversations with parties involved in a dispute? This one seems to call for those soft skills we were talking about.
You got it. This is where your active listening, empathy, and de-escalation skills really matter. And you know what? The RoleCatcher Interview Guide has a great tip for these situations. Use open-ended questions.
Oh, that's a good one. Open-ended questions encourage people to talk and help them feel heard, which can keep the conversation from getting out of hand.
And don't forget to mention your ability to stay calm and professional, even when things get heated. Interviewers want to see that you can manage those tough conversations with grace and diplomacy.
What about this potential follow-up? Tell us about a time you successfully calmed down a tense situation during conflict resolution.
There you go. That's when you showcase your communication skills. Describe the specific techniques you used, the result of the situation, and what you learned from that experience.
Perfect. Now for question number 7. How do you ensure that all parties involved in a dispute feel heard and understood? It feels kind of similar to the last question, but with a slightly different focus.
It's all about neutrality and impartiality. Remember, as an ombudsman, you're not there to take sides. You're there to create a safe space for everyone to share their perspective.
So talk about your ability to listen without judgment, to accurately summarize each person's point of view, and to ask clarifying questions to make sure you fully understand their concerns. And the RoleCatcher Guide emphasizes the importance of validating feelings.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with someone, acknowledging their emotions can go a long way in building trust.
What if they ask, two parties have completely different views? How do you make sure they both feel heard and respected even though they disagree?
That's where you demonstrate your skill in facilitating communication and finding common ground. You're guiding them towards a solution that works for everyone, even if it's not a perfect one.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot where everyone feels like their voice has been heard.
Okay, question number 8. How do you handle situations where there's no clear solution to a dispute? This one feels like a real head-scratcher.
It can be, and it's something ombudsmen face all the time. Sometimes there's just no easy answer, no clear winner or loser. That's where your creativity and critical thinking come in.
So you want to talk about your ability to think outside the box, explore different solutions, and maybe even talk to colleagues or get expert advice when you need it. The RoleCatcher Guide talks about being transparent in these situations. Sometimes the best you can do is help people understand their options and make informed decisions even if it's not ideal.
And imagine they follow up with, tell us about a time you had a complex dispute with no simple solution. What did you do and what happened?
That's your chance to really shine. Showcase your problem-solving skills, your ability to adapt, and your commitment to finding the best way forward even when it's not obvious. All right, last question. We're almost there. How do you measure the effectiveness of your role as an ombudsman? This one seems kind of abstract.
It can be. Unlike some roles where you have clear metrics, measuring the impact of an ombudsman can be more subtle.
But the RoleCatcher Guide has some useful suggestions. Gathering feedback from clients, tracking case outcomes, identifying trends and disputes. It's about showing that you're always trying to improve and get better at what you do.
And imagine this follow-up. You've been in the role for a year. How would you evaluate your own effectiveness, and how would you improve?
This is where you show your self-awareness and your commitment to growth. Talk about specific ways you gather feedback, analyze data, and maybe even seek professional development opportunities. Okay, we've covered a lot here, breaking down those interview questions and even anticipating some follow-ups. But before we wrap up part one, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier, RoleCatcher's AI-powered features.
Yes, this is where things get interesting.
Imagine having a personal coach helping you craft perfect answers and pointing out areas to improve. That's what RoleCatcher's AI can do.
It can analyze job descriptions, find those keywords and skills that employers want, and even suggest specific wording for your resume and cover letter.
It's like having a secret weapon, helping you tailor your application to stand out. And it goes beyond just words. RoleCatcher can also help you practice your interview answers.
You can record yourself answering questions and get feedback on your delivery, your tone, even your body language. It's like having a mock interview with an expert, but from the comfort of your own home.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And did you know RoleCatcher has a feature that lets employers match with you? You can opt in, and registered employers can find you based on your skills and experience. It's like taking control of the job search.
It's a game changer. And with RoleCatcher's AI-powered tools, you'll be ready to make a great impression when those opportunities come up.
Well, that wraps up part one of our deep dive into Ombudsman interview prep. We've covered a lot, but there's more to come. In part two, we'll continue exploring the unique challenges and opportunities of this role, and we'll dig even deeper into how RoleCatcher can help you shine as a top candidate. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Ombudsman interview prep.
We just tackled some tough interview questions, but now it's time to think beyond just having the right answers.
Yeah, acing an interview is all about really understanding what those interviewers are looking for in a candidate and how to present yourself as the perfect fit for this role.
And that's where all those insights from RoleCatcher become super valuable. Okay, let's dig in. The guide mentions that more and more ombudsmen are choosing to specialize these days.
Right, it's becoming more common to focus on specific areas, like healthcare education or government. This specialization can really give you a leg up.
That makes sense. If a university is looking for an ombudsman, and you've got experience handling student disputes and academic policies, you're instantly a stronger candidate.
Exactly. If you're drawn to a certain field, definitely highlight that in your application and during the interview. It shows you have a deeper understanding of the challenges in that area, and you're passionate about making a difference in that context.
The RoleCatcher guide also talks about the importance of always learning and growing in this field.
Which makes sense, right? Laws change, new issues come up, and best practices evolve. A great ombudsman is always learning and adapting.
So how can we show that commitment to continuous learning during an interview?
Talk about your proactive approach. Mention specific conferences you've attended, publications you read, or professional development courses you've taken. You could even talk about a recent legal development that impacts ombudsman work and how you keep up with those changes.
It shows you're really invested in this field and want to stay at the forefront of your profession.
Now let's talk about something that can be a bit intimidating, the AI element in hiring.
It's true. A lot of companies use AI to screen applications, which can feel kind of mysterious.
But RoleCatcher can help you make sense of it. Remember those top skills we talked about, reading comprehension and active listening? Well, AI can actually assess those too.
So it's not just about cramming your resume with keywords.
It's about writing clearly and concisely in a way that both a human and an AI can understand.
And that's where RoleCatcher's CV Resume Builder is so helpful. It helps you tailor your application to the specific role and the AI that's screening it.
It can analyze job descriptions, pick out those key skills, and even suggest specific wording.
Now let's talk about RoleCatcher's interview practice feature. It's like having your own AI coach.
You can record yourself answering practice interview questions, and the AI will actually analyze your performance and give you personalized feedback. Maybe you're talking too fast or your tone's a bit too casual.
The AI can pick up on those little things and give you really useful feedback.
Exactly. You can practice as many times as you need until you feel super confident walking into that interview.
Speaking of feeling confident, let's go back to a key part of the ombudsman role that we touched on earlier. Handling situations where there's no easy solution.
Right, it's a reality of the job. You'll face those complex situations where there's no clear answer. Interviewers want to know that you can handle that.
So how can we show that ability during an interview?
Show off those critical thinking skills. Talk about a time you faced a challenging situation with no obvious way forward. How did you approach it? Did you gather more information, consult with colleagues, or seek expert advice?
The key is showing that you're not afraid of uncertainty, and you can make good judgments even when things aren't clear-cut.
And don't forget to show that you can communicate those decisions effectively to everyone involved.
Another crucial aspect is staying neutral and impartial. An ombudsman isn't there to choose sides or push for a specific outcome.
They're there to create a fair and balanced process where everyone feels heard and respected. It's about helping people find a solution that works for everyone, even if it's not perfect.
But maintaining that neutrality can be tough, especially when emotions run high.
For sure. So, how do we show our commitment to neutrality during the interview?
It's about highlighting your ability to listen without judgment and to empathize with people who might have totally different points of view.
Share an example of a time you had to mediate a conflict between two people with very different perspectives.
Yeah, talk about how you stayed objective, facilitated a productive conversation, and helped them find some common ground.
It's about proving that you're not easily swayed by emotions, you can see all sides, and you're dedicated to fair solutions.
The RoleCatcher Guide also talked about the importance of building trust and a good relationship with your clients.
That's so important for any ombudsman. People need to feel comfortable coming to you with sensitive issues, knowing that you'll treat them with respect and keep things confidential.
So how can we show that ability to build trust during an interview?
Talk about your communication skills, your empathy, and your ability to create a safe and supportive environment. Talk about your approach to active listening, your ability to ask those open-ended questions that really get people talking, and your commitment to keeping things confidential.
Maybe you could even mention specific things you do to build rapport, like finding common ground or mirroring body language.
Right. It's all about showing that you're approachable, trustworthy, and truly care about helping people.
Now let's talk about something that people often forget about in interview prep, asking good questions.
I know, right? Many candidates get so focused on answering questions that they forget it's a two-way conversation.
Asking good questions shows you're really interested in the role of the organization and the work they do.
It shows you're curious, you think critically, and you're not afraid to dig a little deeper.
So what are some good questions to ask during an ombudsman interview?
You could ask about the kinds of cases they handle, the challenges they face, or how they measure their effectiveness. You could also ask about the organization's culture, their commitment to diversity and inclusion, or their opportunities for professional development.
It's about asking thoughtful questions that show you're genuinely interested in joining their team.
And don't forget to take notes during the interview.
The taking notes shows you're engaged, you're taking it seriously, and you're really trying to absorb the information.
One last tip that can help you stand out: follow up after the interview.
It's a simple thing, but it can make a big difference.
Send a thank you note to the interviewer. Restate your interest in the role and highlight something specific you talked about.
It keeps you on their radar and shows you're professional and appreciate their time. Well, we've covered a ton in this deep dive into ombudsman interview prep. We've talked about key skills, tackled tough interview questions, and even explored the role of AI in hiring.
And most importantly, we've highlighted how RoleCatcher can be a fantastic resource throughout this journey.
From crafting your application to practicing those tricky questions, RoleCatcher can help you stand out as a candidate and hopefully land that dream job.
Welcome back. We've spent the last two parts really diving deep into ombudsman interview prep.
Yeah, we've covered all those tough interview questions, explored the key skills, and even talked about how AI is changing the whole hiring landscape.
But now it's time to shift gears a bit and look ahead. What does the future hold for ombudsmen?
That's a great question. The world is changing so fast, and those changes are definitely impacting how conflicts arise and how they get resolved.
Totally. Technology, globalization, social movements, they're all shaping how we deal with disputes.
Absolutely. And for ombudsmen who are right in the middle of resolving those conflicts, these changes bring both exciting opportunities and some really complex new challenges.
The RoleCatcher Guide actually touches on some of these emerging trends. It mentions the increasing complexity of disputes driven by globalization and how interconnected our world is. Think about it. Disputes can literally span continents, involve multiple legal systems, and touch on all sorts of cultural sensitivities.
It's like the playing field for ombudsmen is expanding, and the rules are getting more and more complicated.
Exactly. Ombudsmen need to understand international relations, cultural norms, and different legal systems.
And then there's technology. We've already seen how AI is changing hiring, but it's also changing how disputes happen and how they're resolved.
Think about online platforms and social media. They create new ways for conflicts to arise, but also new ways to mediate and communicate.
Yeah, I can imagine an ombudsman using video conferencing to mediate a dispute between two parties who are miles apart. It's amazing how technology can bridge those gaps.
It is. But technology also brings new ethical questions. Things like data privacy, online harassment, and even algorithmic bias. These are all things ombudsmen might have to deal with in the future.
It definitely adds a whole new layer of complexity to the role ombudsmen need to be, not just mediators, but also navigators of this digital world and guardians of ethical principles.
Speaking of ethical principles, social movements and changing values are also impacting dispute resolution. Issues like social justice, equity, and inclusion are so important these days.
And they're shaping what people expect from institutions and those who handle conflicts within them. The role of the ombudsman becomes even more crucial in these situations.
Imagine a university dealing with a dispute about racial bias or gender discrimination. The ombudsman needs to really understand these issues and advocate for fair and equitable outcomes.
It's like the ombudsman acts as a bridge between the institution and the community, helping to build understanding and create a more inclusive environment.
And let's not forget about the impact of AI on the very nature of disputes. As AI becomes more common in our lives, we're going to see new kinds of conflicts emerge.
What kind of disputes do you think we'll see related to AI?
Well, think about disputes related to algorithmic bias, where an AI system might be making decisions that unfairly impact certain groups of people.
That's a really good point. Or disputes about data privacy, where personal information is collected or used in ways that people don't agree with.
Exactly. Ombudsmen will need to understand how these AI systems work, how to spot potential biases, and how to advocate for fairness and transparency.
As these technologies keep evolving, the role of the ombudsman will have to adapt too. It shows how important it is to keep learning and stay ahead of the curve.
It's really exciting to think about. The skills and knowledge you gain now will help you not just with today's challenges, but also with the future of this field.
And resources like RoleCatcher can give you a real advantage by providing the tools and insights you need to succeed.
Absolutely. As you go on this journey, remember that you're not just resolving disputes, you're helping to create a fairer, more just, and more equitable world.
That's an inspiring thought. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of ombudsman interviews and the exciting future of this profession.
We hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and the confidence to pursue this rewarding path.
Remember, with preparation, dedication, and a passion for making a difference, you can truly shine in this role. And with tools like RoleCatcher by your side, you'll be ready for anything. Good luck.